I was having lunch with a friend a few days ago, and he was kind of belaboring things and kind of catharsisizing, basically kind of complaining on things. And he shared with me, he said, "Hey, John, I just had a lessons learned with my team, and I'm just not happy in the direction that we're going." And I asked him, I said, "Are you measuring results or are you measuring activities?" Interesting question. We're going to dive into that here in just a few minutes. In the meantime, welcome back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. So with this scenario that I was just talking about just a few minutes ago, and the key issue is, are you measuring results or are you measuring activities? It's my core belief that you actually have to kind of be measuring both. I think from a leadership aspect, you do want to encourage people for doing the right process. If you look at it from the idea of raising children, if all you kind of focus in on is the result, then what ends up happening is that they may, I'm not going to say they all do, okay, but they may, start to lie, cheat, or steal in order to get that A on the paper. And of course, that's not what you wanted. Fast forward in their lives a few decades later, and let's say that they're working for a large conglomerate, a large unnamed conglomerate. And this conglomerate, they actually pay based on results. On the front end, that sounds really, really good, except that there's no boundaries, there's no barriers, and the individuals inside that organization, again, start to lie, cheat, or steal in order to, quote unquote, hit their numbers. So that can be a little problematic. On the flip side of it is that if all you do is look at the activities, you may not actually get results. And we eventually do have to get to results. What did you actually accomplish? So there's going to be a natural tension, on that. If it's too much, it's going to break. If it's too little, it's not going to be, beneficial. So you want it just enough. So you want those activities. You certainly want to put in the work, put in the grind. That is what we do, especially as project managers, as project leaders, for our organizations, whether it's on a professional or the personal side. Again, a lot of this does apply, to your personal life as well. So while you do want to make sure that you reward people, acknowledge people for the work that they have done, you do want to make sure that it means and lands into results. What did you actually accomplish? Now, in a small business, it really just comes down to dollars. Did your activities lead to dollars? Now, keep in mind that there can be a dominoes effect that's kind of going on. So if you're running like an online store, some of that nature, you have to have like X amount of likes in order to get to a buy. We should kind of understand that. The same thing in like sales, X amount of phone calls come back to 10 interested individuals. 10 interested individuals lead to 3 proposals. Out of 3 proposals, you finally get 1 buy. So there should be, usually there's some kind of a chain reaction. The key is to kind of figure out what that chain reaction is, so that you can make sure that the activities you are doing will lead to the results that you need. So what happens if you're doing a lot of work but you're not getting the results? One thing that would kind of jump out to me personally is to ask yourself, are these the activities I need to be doing? Quite frankly, because they could be, a lot of work and a lot of people feeling good and things of that nature, but they is just not delivering the results that the organization needs or that the individual needs. So let's take up fitness, and let's say they're losing weight or something of that nature. Let's say that they're working out like a fiend. They're just working out. But they're not seeing anything on the scales, going downward. Well, it's kind of problematic. Are you doing the right workouts? Are you actually looking at your diet and exercise? And really kind of titrating that, so that the work that you put in does lead to results. The flip side of it is maybe you are getting some results. Are they the results that you want? Wow, a lot of this kind of comes back to VROOM, VROOM. You can look it up in your PMPs, we should know this, but it isn't actually, the expectancy theory, it is actually a good question. Again, just kind of make sure that we understand that while we want the results, no issues, no concerns, we got to make sure that the activities we're going to do leads us to it. Again, from a leadership perspective, I kind of put both of it, not necessarily in the same bucket, but, very, very close. because I'd be too concerned if I'm just rewarding people for a lot of activity, but they're not generating the right results. Okay. Or just rewarding people on just the results, which could lead to maladaptive behavior on the activities. So there is a balance that needs to be placed in there. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this session of the John the PM. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us to be back of service back to you. In the meantime, make all of your projects be highly successful.